And hello, welcome to another video. In the last video we learned about tags. We learned how to write content in between tags. We also learned that most tags come in pairs, the open and close tags, and just very few do not come in pairs. Some actually have their close tag embedded inside the opening tag. So in this video we're going to learn about boilerplate tags. Now boilerplate tags are just simply tags that every web page should or must have. So I'm just going to show you what those tags are. So this is my VS Code opened, and VS Code supports an extension called Emit by default, so you don't need to install anything extra. So with Emit I can quickly write out all those tags by using a shortcut, and the shortcut is !, and tab. Okay, and then you can see it generates some tags for us. Now these tags are known as boilerplate tags. Majorly the reason is because if you look at the word boilerplate, it's kind of like something that would do not change per se. Just like if you have a document or there's a form or there's an agreement that you need to sign, usually the agreement is always the same, just a few changes, maybe the name and the dates been changed. So that's kind of like what we have here. So these tags are like the compulsory tags we must use for every web page. So you might not know what they mean now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and explain what they mean line for line. So let's head back to the slide. This just outlines all the boilerplate tags. So we have a DOCTYPE, we have a HTML head, meta, title, and body tag. I'm gonna go ahead and explain all of those tags. So the first one we have is the DOCTYPE. So the DOCTYPE is kind of like a statement because it has, you can see this !. So this just defines the mode the website is going to be rendered in. So over the years, web design has evolved. Okay, there's a kind of like an old standard way of doing stuff, and there's a new standard way of doing stuff. So when you declare your DOCTYPE as HTML, it kind of tells the browser which of those standards it should use. So you could either use the modern one or the old one, which is known as Quex mode. Okay, and I've mentioned that the ! Is just to say that this is a statement. So you can see it doesn't have a closing tag, neither does it have the closing embedded inside it. Okay, so what happens if we then add this? Now what might happen is that the website or the browser might render your web page using the old way of doing stuff, and that might not be what you want. So it's usually the first thing we declare when we're creating a new web page. We declare the DOCTYPE. Now the second tag we're going to be looking at is the HTML. So let me just show you. Let's go back to our code. So we have that in line number 2, and you can also see there's something here called lang, that stands for language, and my language is English. Okay, so let's talk about this line number 2, the HTML tag. So the HTML tag just simply represents the root of your HTML document. So it's the root, and the root is like where everything stems from. So everything we're going to be writing is going to be inside this. It's going to be contained in between the opening tag of the HTML and the closing tag of the HTML. So I also showed you the language attribute. So this is just to specify the language that's used for the text in your document. You have English, Chinese, and every other language out there. So then what happens if you don't add the HTML tag? Well, most browsers will just add that for you. So even if you omit it, it's going to be added for you, but then you should always have that in place. And also what happens if you just write HTML tag, you don't add the language attribute? Well, there's some things that might happen. Number one is that you won't be able to select some appropriate fonts for your language. For example, if you're typing in traditional Chinese, that has the symbols, they might not be displayed correctly because you didn't specify the language for that document. And another thing that happens when you omit the language attribute is that it might affect the ranking of your website or the web page itself. And then there are some apps or there are some softwares that are being made for people that have reading disabilities. If you don't have that language attributes, those apps or those softwares will not be able to tell which language your web page is in, so it might be difficult for them to translate to another language. So the next tag we're going to be looking at is the head. I'll head back to VS Code and I'll show you where head is. So head is the one just after HTML. So we have the opening tag on line number 3, and then if you go down, you're going to see the closing tag. So though there are other things in between the head, we're going to come back to those, but let's just look at what the head actually is. So the head simply contains the metadata for the document. So metadata simply means information, about something. So in the head section, we add some kind of specific information about the HTML document. Another cool thing about the head, or what another cool thing that's used for, is that most of those information you add to the head section, they're not visible, in quotes, they're not visible to the user, but they kind of help to do things. They kind of help to, specify some certain information, maybe for search engines. And we kind of also use the head section to add links to external documents. For example, we add links to external CSS, fonts, and we also add the title of the document inside the head. So the head is like a container for metadata. So what happens if you don't add this? Well, most browsers will add it for you automatically, but then it's good you also add it yourself. You don't have to omit that. So let's look at one of the contents, or one of the tags inside the head section. So I head back to my VS Code and we're looking at line number 4. What does line number 4 actually mean? Okay, so this line number 4 is a tag, a meta tag. Okay, and it has an attribute of character set equal to this funny thing you can see here. Another thing to note about this tag is that it's a self-closing tag. It doesn't have a separate closing tag. You can see the / kind of like close the tag. So it's a self-closing tag. Okay, so what does this actually do? So this specifies the character encoding of your documents. Now, if you're using anything other than the most basic English text, people may not be able to read the content you create unless you say what the character encoding you used. Now, what this basically means is that when you're typing content in your web page, you're designing your content, and you use any kind of special characters, like some languages that have maybe an accent on the A, like French or some local languages. Now you need to specify the character set of that page so that you can accommodate those characters that are not found in the basic English text. So what happens if you don't do this? Well, your characters might be displayed incorrectly. So I'm just going to show you an example that I got from W3C. Now, if you don't specify the character set, you can see what it might look like. So it looks like gibberish. Okay, let's move ahead. The next one we have is another meta tag that talks about Internet Explorer. Let me just go back to the code to show you. We're on line number 5. Okay. Now what this does is just to let the browser know the version of Internet Explorer that the page should be rendered in. Now you might be wondering, why Internet Explorer? What of Chrome? What of other browsers out there? Web design has evolved. There was a time where you had to worry kind of about how Internet Explorer displays your web page, because Internet Explorer kind of renders web pages differently. But as of 2021, that is a thing of the past. you don't have to worry about that anymore, because over the years Internet Explorer has evolved to, I think what they have now is Edge. But as a web designer, you might encounter a client, or there's a web app that kind of like needs you to take care of that old Internet Explorer. Then you need to specify, when you design, you need to specify what version of Internet Explorer that your page should be rendered in. For this meta tag, it just says that the page should be rendered using the latest version, which is the Edge. So what happens if you don't do this? Well, Internet Explorer might render the page with a version you don't want, and things might look messy. But this is for if you specifically want to support Internet Explorer. That's the old Internet Explorer. But so another tag that we have inside the head is the meta tag that specifies the viewport. Now, what this basically does is it's kind of like lets your browser know how to represent your web page across different devices. Now, we know different devices have varying screen size. This tag kind of helps your browser to know how to render that web page. So what happens if you don't do this? Well, the web page may appear zoomed out on some devices. So this is an example I got from W3 Schools. So on the left, you can see that this page was designed without specifying the viewport. And on the right, you can see a page that was designed specifying the viewport. So the one on the right looks good. It looks accurately zoomed in at 100%. But the one on the left kind of like zoomed out. You can't really see the text. So having this tag is kind of like important. Now the other tag you have is the title tag, and I'm just going to show you that in the VS Code. We have that on line number 7, the title. At the name of the tag, the title tag specifies the title of the document. Now this usually is displayed in your browser tab. So whenever you're browsing a website, you normally see, like if you're on a mobile device or PC, when you have a look at the tab, there's actually a name written there. So that name is whatever you type in between your title tags. So also you can have that in bookmark lists, and some search engines use the title tag to display the name of the website or whatever you have in your title when they are displaying their results. So what happens if you don't add this? Well, you should add it. It's a requirement by W3C. So W3C is like a community that kind of like standardize things that has to do with web design. So you should have that in your web page. Always make sure you have that. Don't do without it. So let's go over to the body tag. So let me show you my VS Code body tag. It's on line number 9. So we have the opening on 9 and the closing on 11 for now. Anyways, so the body tag just represents the content of your document. So wherever one have our content, it's going to be inside, in between the body tags. So in the last video where we just had the H1 tags, so by standard, we should have those H1 tags in between the body tag. So what happens if you don't add this? Well, it will be added automatically in some browsers. The web page will still look fine, it will still work, but it's recommended you always add that. So in the last video, we didn't add it, but under the hood, the web browser added those tags for us, and we're able to see what we designed. Now I'm just going to talk about some 2 other tags. They are not really necessary, but we're going to be using them a lot. The first one is link, and the other one is a script tag. So the link, we use it to link external documents like our CSS, and we usually add it in between the head tags. You're going to be seeing that a lot. We also have a script tag. We use it to include scripts and data blogs. Like if you're going through, or if you're working with JavaScript, you're going to be using a script tag to add your JavaScripts. And we can add them in between the head tags or just before the body close tag. Okay, so that's all about boilerplate tags, and I'm just going to summarize what we've learned so far. So I'm just going to get rid of everything here. Remember, the boilerplate tags are those tags we necessarily need for every web page that we're going to be designing. So anytime you create a new web page and it's a HTML file, make sure you add your boilerplate tags. With VS Code, it's easy to add exclamation mark and tab. Then you have all those things written out for you. Then you can go ahead and change the document title. You can call it first web page. Just gonna call that first web page. And inside my body, I'll just put the H1 tag. Remember H1 and tab, and I'll say I am learning web design. I save this and I'm going to preview this in my web browser. So in my web browser, you can see first web page is written and the tab here because that's what we have in the title. And in the body, you can see I am learning web design. So in the next video, we're going to learn about more tags. So see you in the next video.